A 73-year-old grandmother nearly missed her cruise. She had packed every medication perfectly, or so she thought. TSA pulled her aside for 45 minutes over a pill organizer that any pharmacist would recognize instantly, and by the time she cleared security, her travel group had already boarded the shuttle without her. That story is more common than airlines will ever admit, and after studying hundreds of senior traveler complaints, speaking with former TSA supervisors, and digging through federal aviation regulations, I uncovered the complete truth about flying with medications in 2026. Today, I am handing you every single piece of it. Why TSA targets medications more than ever. Seniors are flagged at security more than anyone. That is not a guess or a generalization. That is a pattern backed by traveler complaint, data, TSA oversight reports, and the sheer volume of messages I receive every single week from people over 60 who did everything right and still got pulled aside. Before we get into solutions, you need to understand why, because once you see the system clearly, navigating it becomes almost effortless. Here is what changed after 2020. TSA dramatically expanded screening protocols for carry-on items, specifically targeting powders, liquids, and dense packed containers. Prescription medications hit every single one of those categories simultaneously. A bag full of pill bottles is dense, casts unusual shadows on an X-ray screen, and contains liquids, powders, and sometimes needles. To a scanner operator seeing thousands of bags daily, your medication case looks like a problem. Here is the part nobody tells you. The average traveler over 65 carries 4 to 7 prescription medications on a domestic trip, so the population most likely to be flagged is also the least likely to know their rights. TSA agents flag anything unidentifiable. Fair enough, but that burden belongs at home, not at the checkpoint. That thinking shift changes everything. The golden rule: never pill organize before you fly. Pill organizes are TSA's single favorite flag. I know you have used one for 20 years. Your doctor loves that you use one. Your children sleep better knowing you use one. I completely understand, and I'm telling you anyway. Leave it at home when you fly, or at least understand exactly what you are walking into when you bring it. A pill organizer, to a TSA X-ray operator, is an unidentified container of unidentified substances with zero pharmacy labeling and zero way to confirm what anything is. Here is what actually happens when a pill organizer goes through the belt. The scanner flags the tray. An agent pulls the bag. They open the organizer. Now they are looking at 14 tiny compartments of mixed loose pills with no labels, no bottles, and no documentation linking any of those pills to any human being standing in front of them. At that point, you are not a grandmother heading to Phoenix. You are an unknown quantity, and the agent has to treat you accordingly. A quick word before we go on. As we get older, flying doesn't have to become more stressful or more expensive. There are free airline services, seat upgrades, airport assistance, and simple travel tricks that many seniors never realize they're entitled to. I've gathered 101 of the most useful airline secrets into a book called The Ultimate Senior Air Travel Bible. I won't mention it again. If you'd like to pick up a copy, you'll find the link in the description. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple. Keep medications in their original pharmacy containers for the duration of your travel. Yes, they take up more room. Yes, the bottles are bulkier, but that original label is doing 3 jobs simultaneously. It identifies the medication by name, it links the prescription to you by name, and it tells the agent exactly which pharmacy filled it on exactly which date. That label is your silent advocate at the checkpoint, and it costs you nothing to keep it. Here is my personal workaround, and I say this as someone who travels with more medications than I am willing to list publicly. I bring the original bottles through security, then transfer what I need into the organizer once I am past the checkpoint and sitting at my gate. Best of both worlds. Zero drama. Gate sandwich in hand. Life is good. Liquid medications. The 3.4-ounce rule has an exception. Nobody talks about most seniors panic when they hear liquid medications. They assume the 3.4-ounce rule applies to everything, and they start leaving critical prescriptions at home. That assumption is wrong, and in some cases it is genuinely dangerous. The Transportation Security Administration has a federal exemption specifically for medically necessary liquids, gels, and aerosols, and it covers quantities well above the standard limit. Here is the exact rule. Medically necessary liquids are exempt from the 3.4-ounce restriction. That means your liquid antibiotic, your eye drops, your oral suspension medication, your insulin, your saline solution, all of it can exceed 3.4 ounces if it is medically necessary for your trip. The catch, and there is always a catch, is that you must declare these items separately at the checkpoint before screening begins. Declaring is not complicated and it is not confrontational. You simply tell the agent before your bag goes on the belt. Here is your magic phrase, I am traveling with medically necessary liquid medications and I would like to declare them before screening. That sentence does something important. It activates a specific TSA protocol. The agent is now required to screen those liquids separately using methods other than the standard bag scan, and they cannot simply confiscate a liquid because it exceeds 3.4 ounces once you have properly declared it. Place your liquid medications in a clear bag, separate from your standard liquids bag, and keep them on top of everything else in your carry-on for easy access. Some agents will ask you to open containers for additional screening. Stay calm. That is standard. It takes 2 minutes, and then you are through. The travelers who get into trouble are the ones who say nothing and hope the scanner misses it. The scanner never misses it. Controlled substances. The rules. Most seniors get wrong. Opioid pain medications cause more senior travel headaches, period. I hear about this constantly. A 68-year-old with chronic back pain prescribed hydrocodone. A 72-year-old with an anxiety disorder prescribed lorazepam. A 65-year-old who has taken the same sleep medication for 15 years. These are common medications. They are legally prescribed, and at airport security they can stop your morning completely if you are not prepared. Here is the truth about controlled substances and flying. TSA does not technically require a prescription label to allow controlled substances through security on domestic flights. The federal government does not mandate it. However, and this is a very significant however, individual agents have discretion, and an agent looking at a bottle of oxycodone with a worn-off label and no documentation is going to exercise that discretion in the most conservative direction possible every single time. Your action plan is straightforward. For domestic travel, keep controlled substances in their original pharmacy bottles with clear, legible labels. Carry a printed copy of your prescription. Include your prescribing doctor's name, phone number, and the medication name, dosage, and quantity. That printed copy does not have legal force, but it gives a nervous agent something to verify, and verification means you move forward. For international travel, the rules change completely, and I am giving international medications its own chapter because it deserves one. What I will tell you now is this: never, under any circumstances, assume that a medication legal in the United States is legal at your destination. That assumption has ruined trips, and in some countries it has done far worse than that. Needles, syringes, and insulin. Flying diabetic has never been easier. Diabetic travelers get stopped at security more than anyone. I want to say something clearly before we go any further. Flying with diabetes is completely manageable. I have heard from hundreds of diabetic travelers, over 60 who fly regularly without a single security incident, and every single one of them uses the same basic system. Once you know the system, the checkpoint becomes the least stressful part of your journey. Federal rules explicitly protect diabetic travelers at airport security. TSA cannot confiscate insulin. TSA cannot confiscate syringes, lancets, glucose meters, test strips, or insulin pumps. These items are federally protected, as medically necessary equipment, and any agent who tells you otherwise is wrong. That is not an opinion. That is the law, and you are allowed to say so calmly and clearly if it ever comes up. Here is the packing system that never gets flagged. Keep all diabetes supplies together in a single clear pouch. Insulin goes in the pouch, not the liquids bag. Label the pouch on the outside with a simple handwritten note. Diabetic supplies. When you reach the checkpoint, pull the pouch out and set it in the bin separately, exactly the way you would handle a laptop. That visual separation tells the agent immediately what they are looking at, and agents who know what they are looking at rarely slow you down. One more thing about insulin specifically. Keep it in your carry-on, not your checked bag. Cargo, holds on commercial flights, can reach temperatures that degrade insulin, and a degraded insulin supply at your destination is a medical emergency nobody wants to manage on vacation. Your carry-on is temperature controlled. Your insulin belongs there. Full stop. End of discussion. No exceptions. CPAP machines, oxygen concentrators, and medical devices. They fly free medical devices do not count towards your baggage allowance. I will say that again more slowly because airlines are genuinely counting on you not knowing this. Your CPAP machine, your portable oxygen concentrator, your nebulizer, your hearing aid batteries, your powered wheelchair, none of these count towards your carry-on limit, and none of them can be charged a baggage fee. That is a federal mandate, not an airline courtesy, and the distinction matters enormously. Here is what happens when travelers do not know. A 69-year-old arrives at the gate with a full carry-on and his CPAP machine. The gate agent tells him one of them has to go in the overhead and points at a bag fee. He pays it. He should not have paid a single cent. That CPAP machine has a specific federal classification as a medical device, and the moment you say the words medically necessary device, the fee conversation is over. For oxygen concentrators, the process requires one additional step that is worth knowing well in advance. FAA regulations require portable oxygen concentrators to be FAA approved for in-flight use. Most modern concentrators are, but you need to confirm your specific model is on the approved list before you travel, and you need to notify the airline at least 48 hours before departure. Call their accessibility desk directly. Do not do this online. Do not assume the gate agent knows your device. Call, confirm, get a name, write it down. For CPAP specifically, TSA will ask you to remove it from your bag and place it in a separate bin for screening, just like a laptop. That is standard. Pack it in a way that makes removal easy, ideally in its own case that sits on top of everything else in your carry-on. Do not put it at the bottom under 3 days of clothing and a souvenir you bought before security. That is a personal note. Do not ask why I know this. The doctor's letter, what it must say to actually work. Most doctor's letters fail at security. I am not being harsh. I am being accurate because a letter that fails at the checkpoint is worse than no letter at all. It creates confusion, raises questions, and slows everything down at the exact moment you need to move quickly. A letter that works, however, is one of the most powerful tools a senior traveler carries. Here is what a proper medication letter must contain. First, it needs your full legal name as it appears on your passport or ID. Second, it needs a list of every medication you are carrying by full generic and brand name. Third, it needs the dosage and the reason each medication is prescribed in plain language. Fourth, it needs your doctor's full name, medical license number, clinic address, and direct phone number. Fifth, it needs to be dated within the last 6 months and printed on official clinic letterhead. A letter missing any one of those 5 elements can be dismissed at the checkpoint, and you will be starting the conversation over from scratch. Getting this letter is simpler than most people expect. Call your doctor's office and ask specifically for a travel medication letter for international or domestic air travel. Most offices have a template. Most will turn it around within a few days. Some charge a small administrative fee, usually between $15 and $30, which is nothing compared to the cost of having your medications confiscated or your trip derailed. Here is the insider move that almost nobody uses. Request 2 copies. Keep one in your carry-on medication pouch and one in your checked bag or personal item. If your carry-on is ever gate-checked unexpectedly, you still have documentation on your person, belt, and suspenders. That is the move. International travel and medications. The rules change completely. Some countries will arrest you for medications your American doctor prescribed this year. That is not a scare tactic. That is a documented reality that has affected American senior travelers in Japan, the United Arab Emirates, Indonesia, Greece, and a growing list of other destinations. The global medication landscape does not care about your prescription label or your doctor's letter if the substance itself is classified differently at your destination. Here is how this works in practice. Codeine is available over the counter in many countries. In Japan, it is a controlled substance requiring advance import permission. Certain ADHD medications common in the United States are flatly illegal in several Gulf states. Some anxiety medications classified as Schedule I-4 in the U.S. are Schedule I equivalents elsewhere. Researching your specific medications for every country on your itinerary is not optional. It is mandatory, and it needs to happen weeks before you travel. Your starting point for international medication research is the embassy of your destination country. Every country with a U.S. embassy maintains a website with entry requirements, including medication rules. For controlled substances, many countries require advance notification, import permits, or official translation of your prescription documentation. The embassy website tells you exactly what is needed. Use it. Here is the document that clears customs in almost every country. It is called an International Certificate of Vaccination, or a formal medication declaration letter, translated into the language of your destination country. Your doctor's office can prepare the letter. A certified translation service, easily found online, handles the translation for roughly $30 to $60. That translated letter has cleared medication questions at customs in countries where English documentation alone would have triggered a 2-hour delay. TSA Cares, the free service. Almost nobody uses TSA Cares exists specifically for travelers like you. Almost nobody calls it. That quiet little fact has cost senior travelers thousands of hours of unnecessary stress at security checkpoints across America, and I genuinely cannot understand why this service is not mentioned in every piece of senior travel advice ever written, so I am mentioning it now loudly in the middle of a script with no apologies. Here is what TSA Cares actually does. You call 1-855-787-2227 at least 72 hours before your flight. A TSA representative documents your specific medical needs and medications. They flag your flight in their system. When you arrive at your departure airport, a passenger support specialist meets you at the checkpoint and personally walks you through security. No confusion. No agent who has never seen your particular device before. A dedicated human being whose entire job is making your security experience smooth. That service is completely free. It requires one phone call. It removes almost every point of friction that senior travelers report at airport security. And in my experience collecting travel stories from people over 60, fewer than 1 in 20 seniors who would genuinely benefit from this service have ever used it. That number should be the opposite. Here is your action plan. Save that number right now, 1-855-787-2227. Call at least 72 hours before departure, not the night before, not the morning of. Give them your flight details, your airline, your departure airport, and a plain language description of your medications and any medical devices you are carrying. Write down the name of the person you speak with, that is your confirmation, your packing system, the method that never gets flagged. How you pack medications matters as much as what. A perfectly documented medication collection packed incorrectly will still slow you down at the checkpoint because the X-ray operator does not see your labels. They see shapes, densities, and shadows. Your job is to give those shapes the clearest possible picture, and there is a specific system for doing exactly that. Here is the packing order that moves through scanners cleanly. Start with your medication pouch on top of everything else in your carry-on. Inside that pouch, keep bottles upright and uncovered, not buried under other items. Group them by size so larger bottles do not cast shadows over smaller ones. Place liquid medications in a clear bag, separate from your standard toiletries liquids bag. Keep your doctor's letter in an exterior pocket of your carry-on, not buried in the main compartment. When you reach the checkpoint, pull the medication pouch and place it in its own bin, just like a laptop. That single act of bin separation tells every agent at that checkpoint exactly where to look. It removes ambiguity. It signals a prepared, organized traveler who knows the system. Prepared travelers move faster because agents spend less time trying to figure out what they are looking at. Here is something nobody mentions. Metal pill bottles, decorative tins, and foil-wrapped medications cause more scanner flags than almost any other item in a carry-on bag. If you are carrying medications in anything other than original plastic pharmacy bottles or a clear plastic pouch, switch before your next flight. Metal containers look identical to dense packed contraband on an X-ray screen. Original bottles, clear pouches, open bins, that is the complete system. The Complaint Resolution Official, your nuclear option. Every airport has a federal referee on duty right now. Most TSA agents will go their entire career without a traveler ever invoking this person's existence, and that is exactly how the system prefers it. But if you are ever denied boarding for a legally protected medication, if a device is improperly confiscated, if you are told your insulin cannot fly when federal law says it absolutely can, this is the person you need. The Complaint Resolution Official, or CRO, is a federally mandated position required at every U.S. airport served by a commercial airline. They are trained specifically to resolve disputes involving disability accommodations, medical equipment, and passenger rights. They have authority that a gate agent does not. They can reverse decisions made at the checkpoint. They can be summoned in person or by phone, and they must respond to your request on the spot. Your magic phrase is 6 words. I would like your complaint resolution official. Say it calmly. Say it once. Do not raise your voice, and do not explain yourself before you say it, because the moment those words leave your mouth, the conversation changes. Use this only when a legitimate right has been denied. It is not a bargaining chip for seat upgrades or fee disputes. It is a federal mechanism for exactly the situations I have described in this chapter, and it belongs to every traveler who knows to use it. You just learned the complete system for flying with medications. Now I want to hear your story. Have you ever been flagged at security for a medication that was completely legal? Have you used TSA Cares? Did a doctor's letter ever save your trip? Or did it fall completely flat at the checkpoint? Drop your experience in the comments because your story helps another senior traveler know what to expect. And this community is genuinely one of the best parts of doing this work. If this video gave you something useful, hit that like button and